Okay, there is no sense putting this off. It has to be done. Previously on Railway Empire, we connected up every city worth knowing in Greater Germany here. All the way down, even through these mountains, even when we made some very, very pretty railways that had, well, some contentious opinions on how it looks. I like it. I like this a lot. You've got an over and an under. It's like the Dueling Dragons, but railway form. Also, the Dueling Dragons was decommissioned to make way for the Harry Potter ride at Islands of Adventure. I can forgive that, though. The Harry Potter ride is a good one, even though I have no love for Potter and his gang. Getting sidetracked with other thoughts here. Okay, we've connected everything up. Fantastic. We could just constantly do express lines and basic, or rather mixed lines between everything, and we would make untold amounts of money, and the places would grow. They would grow to maybe like 40, 50, 60, or in some cases where there's decent access to goods. Where do I have somewhere that's actually quite populous? 83 at Hamburg, 76 at wherever that was. And back where we started over with the Danzigers, we got 83k, 76k. Lovely, right? And, you know, we've bought out the rivals, and it would be fairly trivial to get all these tasks completed. We would win, right? Sure, winning is one thing, but I'm here to make a perfect Hansa, and for that, we need to do cold, hard calculating. And I don't even know if I have all the tools at my disposal to get today's calculations done, but I'm going to do them anyway. My plan originally was to do this off-stream, but I kind of talked myself into doing it on-stream last session, because it needs to get done, and, well, we might even be able to pry out some extra knowledge, inspiration, ideas, or calculations from chat as well. Which would be very handy, because I haven't really been used to thinking for many years, and having to do that now is going to be painful. So if you like what you see here in the game today, well, you're not really going to see any of it. No, it's not time for that. It's time for taking this really nice map of Germany that I put together, and grabbing some spreadsheets and getting to work. Let me give some context for this one first, though. When I did the original Perfect Hansa for Patrician 4, there was a lot of work done off-stream. Maybe we can even bring that work on-stream right now. Yeah, this should work. Yeah! I put together a lot of spreadsheets. I also went and pillaged a lot of spreadsheets from some Germans. I found the website where all the Germans talked about Patricia 4, or whatever they call it in their German tongue. Ripped off a lot of raw data there and manipulated it so it could work for a perfect Hansa in that game. And the spreadsheets were plentiful. There was a lot of data, a lot of visual, a lot of data that I put together to try and figure out how to make my perfect Hansa. I think this is actually the final one. Maybe not. There's nothing here indicating that this was it finalized. You know, election cycles, what's this, differences between goods, full calculation of Hanseatic needs depending on how many civies we've got. Even looking into the game to find out which missions were which, because I needed to manipulate the missions in the game. Yeah, things got a little dicey. Oh man, just remembering how I'd had to put this stuff into motion, calculating a perfect Hanseatic population and making sure that we could produce everything for that. Whoa! God, makes me hot under the collar just thinking about it. Here's the basic sheet that started it all off. What are all the goods in the town? Woods, bricks, grains, blah-de-blah. Where they're produced, where raw goods are needed, where goods are imported to town. Oh, that was such a good time. But we're not here to look at Patrician 4. That's just there to inspire us for things to come. Is this Excel 95? No, this is Open Office Calc, which I was told was discontinued about a decade ago. I didn't even notice. I guess that explains why they haven't fixed the bug with the inverted horizontal scrolling when you use a mouse wheel, but that's neither here nor there. So what do I have right now? Well, last night after the stream of Railway Empire that I did, I fired up my image manipulation program of choice, which for me is paint.net. Apparently they're on version 4.2. And thanks to a member of chat by name of Europa Universalis 4, what a name, I was able to get the game's map of Germany here 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. You know, it's kind of odd looking here. This is us zooming right in to see what they have. I don't know what the use of that is, but I was able to take it. I then overlaid the position of the cities on it, and I put a yellow dot on each of them. So I ended up with a here we go. I ended up with a base map that just has the map and the city locations. Great place to start. 100 by 100? No, this is 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. It goes deep. It just doesn't go very detailed. On top of that, I added all the location of the RGOs, the resource gathering operations, but I prefer raw good outputs. This was painstaking. I just had to look back and forth on the map. The locations are mostly accurate, but they might be off a little bit. And then I had to count them all. I missed some. I had to painstakingly check back on the map to find the ones that I had or didn't have. Why isn't Berlin a red dot? You make an excellent point. We should fix that immediately. Let us just put a little point there to indicate that Berlin is not to be dealt with whatsoever. So, where do we even begin with all this? That's what I'm wondering. Well, let's lay down what we need to do in all of this. I need to take this map and lay down the express routes between every city. That's not very important because the express route can be anything really. Express is purely going to be for passengers and mail and for hooking in imports at the very end if being delivered to a non-warehouse. Fair enough. That shouldn't be a big deal here. I would really just be drawing lines between places that need connections, or in the case of the game already have connections. I did a decently robust network of express lines between western and southern Germany, and even some of central. Well, it kind of stops in central and north. I would definitely redo central and north. That isn't very impactful, though. That's really just grunt work. That is just connect the dots. I don't think it's important the way they are connected, because in the end, let's see if we can bring it up. Passengers have destinations. Passengers in Essen here, they have 58 different cities that they want to go to. But a passenger from Essen who wants to go to Koblenz will just as happily go over to Cologne because that's en route, and then later on they'll be in Cologne wanting to go to Koblenz. So really, it doesn't matter as long as all the cities are connected one way or another. So as far as my understanding of the game goes, how I sort out my express lines is very unimportant. What is much more important, if we get rid of this, is how the freight lines are going to be. It's a lot easier, I think, to look at this on the paint.net map that I have here. Do you charge them every ticket of the way? Yes, you do. That's why it's probably better not to have direct lines. People have a lot of money to throw around in this game, and money snowballs outrageously. Right, what is more important is, what's this layer I'm working on? It's not a good layer to work on, actually. I will just get rid of it, go back to map and city, make a slightly bigger dot on Berlin so we know to avoid you. Great. And then create myself a new layer. I don't think you can see my layers that I'm working in, but thank God there are layers. Ever working on an image program that doesn't have layers? Ugh, waste of time. And this means I can use this layer to just sketch around a bit. Now, thanks to this, we can see where all the goods are, and there are some things you might notice, like we have oil here, 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 and I think that might even be all of our oil if I consult with my little list here, because I did make a list of all RGOs. Hey, I can show that on the screen as well. Getaway Patty 4 info, bring up this info. Oil. There are only 5 oil sites, and one of them still needs a name. And take a name, like we still have some places here that are lacking in names because I actually ran out of Patreon names to throw into this. Tragic, really. But getting back to our beloved map here, these are all the oil sites. So really, what if I wanted to have oil down here? I wouldn't want oil, nobody demands oil. But oil is needed to create cars, and cars are heavily in demand once we hit the 20th century. So it would make me do considerations like, okay, maybe beyond this line... Everything does look fine for this Paint.net program, right? Maybe I would say beyond here, I wouldn't follow it that way, I'd follow like the contours or something, but I'd say we'd only provide people with cars up here in the northern area, just because there's not a lot of point in bringing that stuff all the way down south to fulfill demand. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself when I talk about fulfilling demand, because to talk about demand, we have to understand how these cities operate. And again, I'm working with my limited understanding of this game, which has been squeezed out of other players and from what I've noticed about the game so far. Unlike Patrician 4, I don't have hundreds of hours poured into Railway Empire. But let's go with the assumptions that I do have. That line is pretty much the Weißwurst equator. Freaking Germans. Okay, production and consumption. We have a tab for that. We have a tab for everything. This right here is the monthly consumption. It's monthly because we're paying on 100-year mode. Per 100 population per good. Now, not all the goods are demanded all the time. Only these first ones up to pastries are demanded by all cities. Beyond that, it is time and or population capped. I don't care about those caps because in the end I know every city is going to have at least enough people to demand everything. So at 100k they're going to need these. 100k is a bit too small a number to really get our meaty fingers around. So let's consider the 100,000 population needs. So if I have a city with 100,000 population, they're going to want 1.15 cartloads of grain per month. Time passes by pretty quickly. So that's going to be quite a lot of grain. Same with the veggies, the same amount of wood. They actually want more sausages than anything else. These burgerwursts, they eat their sausages aplenty. The demand for pastries is insane. That is huge. The wool is pretty low. Their demand for beer is otherworldly. The Germans chug down the beer like crazy. So they've got all these demands. I'm not going to go through each of them right now. But here's an important thing to consider. For a city to grow, they need to have 60% fulfillment. Now, I believe that means that if they have 10 goods that they demand, they need at least 6 of them available in the city. And then they'll be at 60% fulfillment, and then the city will grow. It will grow until it demands more than what is fulfilled. Then it will stagnate, and I think it'll shrink if it goes below 40. So my goal is to calculate how much we can produce and find a way to manipulate that production such that we fulfill 50% of every city's requirement up to the target population. I don't know what that target population is. We're going to have to think up some formulas to calculate that, and it's going to get even trickier when we get into the next step. But before I get to the next step, the reason I'm going for 50 instead of 60 is, if we come back to the game, away you go, Paint.net, away you go, my beloved spreadsheets. We are going to look at Danzig for this one. Danzig has 56% fulfillment of demand, so it's stagnating, not shrinking, not growing. I put a university in there because I wanted the research points, but into the late game I probably won't care about that, so we will simply demolish the university, and this is going to be something that really helps us grow beyond what we can produce. The museum increases fulfillment by 10%, so if we slam that down, check out Danzig, and unpause, and perhaps even speed up, the fulfillment is going up now, up by 10% thanks to that. And this is why it kind of simplifies the equations, because I now know I only have to produce 50% fulfillment, and the museum will take them up to 60, and then we'll be good. So the aim is to get 50% fulfillment on everything. The moment it goes just below 60%, we're good. So we're going to have a little bit of tolerance here, maybe about 10% of population, and we won't worry about that. Finally, Jake switched to the UI logistics simulator should be using all along. Aye. Okay, so that's the basic premise. Produce enough so that we get 50% fulfillment everywhere. Moving it around, that's going to be a different story. Moving it around is what we do after we have figured out how much of everything we need to produce, because then we can decide where it goes to. This is where things get even more complicated. I will not give the same 50% of everything to every city. Let's go back to the spreadsheets. In fact, let's just get rid of the game altogether. Let's not get carried away with any idea that we're going to have any actual gameplay today. Right. So, what will I give to everybody? Now, it could be that I only give them half of the items. I believe there are 27 items here that places actually demand. These ones in grey are things that only industries demand. I don't think those count towards fulfillment. I'm pretty sure they don't count towards fulfillment. I'll go with that. Taciturn is asking if it would be feasible to produce enough cars in the north to supply the south with automobiles. I don't know. We'll need to calculate that, but calculations will come into sway. So, this is 27, I think, 27 different items. So I'm going to want to fulfill people's needs with 14 of them. That's half rounded up. But it wouldn't be the same 14 if I just gave them all of these goods, for example. I'm going to assume that's 14 I have highlighted. Don't know if it is or isn't. Well, then I wouldn't be fulfilling anybody's need for peat. And we know we produce all this peat. And the fact that we would produce this peat and not actually use it towards fulfillment means that this good is wasted. It's not being used to grow. So it won't be perfection. Perfection will be when every good is used to grow all the towns as much as possible. So maybe the peat will be used for 20 cities, and another 20 cities will get paper, and another 20 will get clocks, for example. Because I sincerely doubt I'm going to have enough cars to produce cars for everyone. And this is where I need to juggle the amount that I get out of a good for what I put into the good. And a really big thing for me here is gingerbread. The demand for gingerbread from Germans is enormous. They love it almost half as much, or more than half as much as they love beer. So the Germans are crazy about their gingerbread. But here's the thing. The consumption of gingerbread is 2 per month per 100,000 people. That's a lot. And when we consider the supply chain, of course, we got more tabs. We've got tabs for days here. The supply chain for... Oh, where is it even now? Where's our gingerbread? Gingerbread consumes 8 fruit, 8 sugar beets, and 8 wheat to produce 16 bits of gingerbread. And straight away you're going to start thinking, that isn't quite right. If you take 8 fruit and 8 sugar beets and 8 wheat, why that is a number, 24 raw input to make 16 of something. On top of that, that 24 is also something that is demand. We have demand for grain. Did I call it wheat here? I call it wheat here and grain in the other. Right, I'm going to change this to wheat then. It looks wheaty. We've got demand for wheat, sugar beets, and fruit for gingerbread. But the demand here is also for wheat, also for sugar beet, and also for, what was the last one? This is how good my short-term memory is. Fruit. There we go. All of wheat, fruit, and sugar beets demands are lower than that of gingerbread. A lot lower, in fact. So why would I take more goods that can fulfill demand to make less goods? This is why something like gingerbread, I think, and this is going by my limited understanding of the game, I think gingerbread is a complete waste of time. It is a net loss on fulfillment. Gingerbread is probably worth lots of money, and you probably make big bucks off of combining these raw goods into gingerbread, because you'll make money shipping the goods, you'll make money from producing the goods, and you'll make money from shipping that gingerbread elsewhere. Money is not part of perfection. Money is a tool which we use to make our way towards perfection. So gingerbread is out. There's a complete opposite to that, and that would be something like... Come on, Jake. Use your mind and figure this out. Porcelain. Porcelain is a great example here. So there's a demand for porcelain, but what if it's the gingerbread problem? What if the sum of the parts to make porcelain is not worth fulfilling one bit of demand? Well, the requirements for porcelain is coal and feldspar, and we look at coal and we go, there's no natural demand for coal. Unsurprisingly, there's also no natural demand for feldspar, so no city will ever want to consume coal or feldspar. Only industries will want this. Ultimate Evil is asking where I get the map. I made it myself. It took me 2 hours last time. I guess I'll upload it and share it for like the 2 other people that care about going this deep into the game. I'm not making the maps for other places. It was easy to make the map. It was easy to just get the map. Easy to put all the locations on it. A nightmare to put all the RGOs on it, all the raw goods. I digress though. Coal and feldspar not consumed, but they are produced. They are produced on the map. How much of it is produced? Here are all the coal pits. There are 10 of them in total. And here are the feldspar pits. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total. So those goods are being made but not consumed. That is why it is of utmost importance that we crank out as much porcelain to use up the feldspar and coal as possible. I believe that is the only use for feldspar, but probably not the only use for coal. Activate your eyes, folks. What else needs coal? Yes. What else needs coal? Here we go, steel. Steel needs coal. So once we've used up all the feldspar and coal that we can to make porcelain to fulfill demand, it'll probably use up all the feldspar before all the coal. The excess coal can go into making steel. Aha. But hold on a minute. There is no natural demand for steel. Why would we produce steel? Well, again, we're using up coal and iron for that matter. Iron is another thing that there is no natural demand for. We're using things that have no natural demand to make stuff that does. Steel doesn't have natural demand, but steel can then be used to make a bunch of tools. It can also be used to make cars. And these things there are most definitely demand for. My problem is cars there's a huge demand for. That's a difficult one to justify, especially since there's low demand for tools, which means every tool we make will go a lot longer towards fulfilling demand. There's also the consideration that tools are used to produce cars, but cars also consume oil, and I don't think anything else uses oil. So one of the things I need to figure out is it worth it at all to produce cars? It might be that it's actually bad to produce cars because the amount it consumes tools, and for that matter steel, which could be used to make even more tools, is so much that that we're eating into tools production. Conversely, it could be that it's possible to overproduce tools to the point where they're no longer going to have an effect on demand, and we want that excess steel to be poured into making cars, steel and tools. If you think this is a little hard to follow, I'm not having much of a better time myself, but I press forward and persevere nonetheless. Gorton says that preservers also use steel. Good point. Where are our preservatives? Here we go, sauerkraut and steel. Interesting one there is that the steel can be used for cars and tools, so is it worth using it for preservers? Because preservers use sauerkraut, and as we know, people really like sauerkraut around here, 1.5. Their demand for preserves is just the same, so the only reason I would ever consider making preserves is if I make so much sauerkraut. Imagine a Germany that just has so much sauerkraut that the Germans no longer want to eat any more of it, and then we can turn it into preservers. I don't know what the numbers are here, but part of what we do today is figure that out. So this is the base of my my ideas behind how I'm going to balance this out. Not every good that is demanded I will fulfill, period, because I'm almost certain I'm not going to make gingerbread, and not every city will get every good. I plan for every city to get half of these goods, 14 of them in total. There's no reason to make more. Gorton insists that it is not possible for there to be so much sauerkraut that the Germans couldn't want more. Let's put that to the test, shall we? Let's start by looking over at the numbers we have on the right here. This is the count of the number of businesses of each type in the map. I appreciate this is not a very clean way to read it. I would like to give it its own designated part on the spreadsheet here, but you have to understand two things. One, I haven't had a lot of free time between these games because it's been Japanese and Railway Empire for a lot of my time in the past couple of weeks. And the other part is I'm not actually that good at making spreadsheets. So if you want to play along at home and share your homework with the teacher would be very happy to read it. Regardless, these are a number of businesses. Did I even spell businesses right? Well, maybe. So we've got 14 wheat, 13 pigs, 11 veggie, 14 wood, da-da-da-da-da. You can read it here, or if you want it visualized, this shows all of these that we have. So there's by far the most grain tied with wood, and there's very little salt, peat, feldspar. The ones that we have few of are going to be great. Now, those are just base numbers, they're meaningless. But they're great when combined with the level 5 production of each facility. A level 5 wheat producer will produce 28 wheat per month. Or so I believe. Let's not believe everything I say. Let's go into the game and check that. Oi, up here in the Brandt Farm. It's level 3 right now, and of course owned by us. Let's say we want to expand it, and expand it once more. Booyah! It makes 28 per month. Is that what our spreadsheet dared to suggest? It is exactly what it says, ergo I'm going to blindly assume that the rest of the numbers, which I came up with a few days ago, are precisely correct. So that gives us an absolute maximum production of every good. We will not be able to get more than these goods, period. So this is a lot, right? That tells us that on the whole map, every month... Whoa, now let's not look at my complex equations here. Every month, we're going to produce 392 wheat. That's a lot of wheat. Now, here's a question for you. How many people can we fulfill with wheat? It's a trick question, because wheat is not only used for base consumption, it's used for pastries. It's also potentially used for gingerbread. Is it used for anything else? Ah, man, I'm using wheat somewhere. Grain. What does the game say? What does the game call this stuff? Grain. Alright, that does it. I'm calling everything grain. No more use of the word wheat. Grain, grain, grain. It looks like wheat. That's my problem. Ah. Jake, wouldn't you need to wait until the very late game to get a truly perfect Hansa, as the fastest of trains will be needed? Oh, it's going to take us a while to get this done. The amount of money we need tells us what this is going to be. I'm just at the planning phase. It's going to take until late game anyway, because that's when people are going to have demands for these later on things in the game. In fact, if I look at a city, and I appreciate you can't see this right now, but I can make you see it. Oh, I just contradict myself here. It's only the demand for cars that starts in 1900, and we might not actually make any cars for people. How about that? This also confirms that thing. See that desire for gingerbread? Enormous. You can't trust that numbers. That's for pastries, but you can compare it with sausages. The Germans like gingerbread so much they want to eat more of that than sausages. That is crazy. Let's come away from that and get back to our spreadsheet magic. So much gingerbread, and I don't want to be making it. Jake, this game says in the tutorial that basic goods demands increase as cities grow and other goods come into demand. I have not confirmed this, but it could give us a wheat, vegetables, and wood surplus if true. That is indeed true, but if we have a surplus like that, I can always ship it off to other cities. I can keep cities that have... Or how's a better way to phrase this? I can make sure that not all good is consumed by all cities to alleviate that. Or we'll simply find that the consumption goes up. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, but we'll find out if it is. And if it is, then we'll have to revisit our planning. But it's better to have a plan than no plan than going forward. We can adjust as we come across these other things. It also might just mean that, you know, population goes higher, they want more goods. But I have seen something in the game files that does indicate that at certain populations there's a percentage increase on top of the linear increase for goods. Good grief. Even if I was listening to me, I wouldn't be able to follow me. But it's simple stuff so far. Relatively speaking. Right. What do I even do now? Well, grain is a good starting point at the very least. So, if we had... I'm saying 200,000 is the base number here, but I kind of want to expand what I'm doing here. Well, if I'm going to expand, let's just expand. Something I don't actually know how to do in OpenOffice Calc is figure out how to tie the formulas to certain cells. I would like to say, for example, that how are we going to do this? I want city size estimates. In this game, there are 58 cities that we're going to be supplying. So let's go with cities, 58, city pop. Nah, it's a bad place to put it up there. I should put it along here. There'll be 58 cities, And city pot is going to be 200,000. I'll just leave it at 200 because I'm going to be working in thousands here. So the total demand for each of these things, if I grab these and just shove that over here, and make it long enough for you. M. It's going to be 1.15. Oh, Jings, this is not quite what I'm after now, is it? I was wanting to point it towards these numbers, but I guess that's no big deal. Whatever. Let's get rid of that. Let's just say demand at 200k, assuming all my cities are at that. Get rid of this. My Excel skills are not high enough for this. So we're going to have this thing times 2, but also multiplied by 58. So if I have everyone at that, it's going to be that. Now, for some reason, this moves down as well. How do I make it so that it's tied to that and doesn't move down every time I drag it down like that? I do not know. Somebody should know. Ah, somebody's got the... somebody's got it for me. They say dollar signs help out. Dollar signs must be some kind of absolute. Oh, magnificent. Very magnificent, in fact. Okay, so our total production of grain is going to be 392 on the map. And if every city was grown to 200,000, the demand for grain would be that. The problem is the demand for pastries would also be at this. So the grain would actually also include the pastries. So... I think pastries are a 1-to-1. I'm quickly checking that in game right now. One bit of pastry, 1 bit of grain makes 1 bit of pastry. So I could also say demand plus industry. Or I could just have a separate one for industry demand. Industry demand. You know what? This would be a lot easier if I use that, because then I don't have to keep changing these formulas. I'll put a size factor here, so it's going to be a factor of 100,000. In this case, the size factor is 2 for 200,000, and instead of having 2 here, we're going to have it multiplied by U, and it's going to be $J, $6. Thanks for that. I'm sure I was taught that back in early computer skills back in the day. Right. So the results were the same, but now I'm using an absolute. That means I can factor us up to 10 if I want to, but I won't. We're not going to have million population cities here. Let's keep it at factor 2. Right, the industry demand for grain. Oh, cripes. Oh dear, oh dear. Here's the complication, because grain is wanted for a lot of different industries, and I'm going to want to segregate those. I could say industry demand 1, and then I could bring it along. I think nothing has more than 3 different industries which demand it. But my oh my. Possibly. Anyway, the industry demand is the amount of... what am I even looking for? The pastries. It's just pastries there. That's nice and easy. But the industry demand 2... The industry demand 2 is going to be where grain is needed for... wool, leather, fruit, milk, wood, fruit, sugar, beets. Grain. It's gingerbread divided by 2. So it's going to be gingerbread, which is already a lot, divided by 2. Is it needed for anything else? Does anything else want my grain? Coal, feldspar, wood, leather, wood, salt pig, steel, wood. Okay, so that's going to be all the need. So I would say total demand equals... There. Wait, what? No value. Do I have to put a 0 here? No, probably just that I didn't say, sum. No? Name? Ah, cribbins. You know what? Let's do it the baby way. It's just these added together. Can I get rid of you and still have a value? Yes, I can. Good. So, as we look at that, the total demand here is 481 for grain. We don't produce that much grain. We will never produce that much grain. So something has to go, and that something is probably going to be the gingerbread. If we cull the gingerbread, well, we suddenly do have enough grain to fulfill demand. So I would look at later on striking out gingerbread to try to reach an equilibrium, because I'm trying to balance this such as a way that I find out what the demand we can hit here. There's also something to consider, that I don't need to hit this 100% demand. I only need to hit half of this 100% demand. So this is actually okay, because it's still under double the production. So, yeah, look, Shadden is striking that one right there. Have you multiplied by 0.5? Not yet. Could I have a conditional here? How do you do conditionals in OpenOffice? I'm used to doing them in Google Docs, but let's try this. Is 50%? No, that's not the way to look at it. Forget it. We'll do the conditionals later. I want to figure this out for everything. So, pigs, there's no demand for them, but there is industry demand. There is a lot of industry demand for it. If we look over at the supply chain, pigs are needed for sausages. This is a little complicated, and I don't actually know how to handle this yet, but maybe I can figure it out. The pigs are a shared resource. Sure, the pigs will give you 16 sausages, but they also give you 16 leather. So, how do I factor that in? I guess it doesn't change the fact that the pigs are going to turn into this, so it's probably better not to even consider that, because there's no raw demand for pigs. We don't need to worry about that whatsoever. So I guess that's okay. Why not make it a Google Sheet? Then other people can join in on the degeneracy by cloning the spreadsheet and working on it themselves. Why not indeed? Well, I just prefer working in OpenOffice here, but what I will... then it can take 10 times longer. Tell you what... I'm not really planning on making this an on-stream calculations with others, but I could certainly take what I have. Yeah, here's what I'll do. I'll do this nice and quick and easy. I'm just going to upload what I have here to a link, and you can download it and play along at home if you really want to. And then if you think you have something really great that works fast, link it in chat, and I shall get it here too. Well, give me just a moment to upload this. Hopefully OpenOffice stuff works in Google. I would not be surprised if it doesn't, though. The entire universe works on SQ. Oh man, I used to work with X. Not work with them, but we had them in school at the time. Do I have a Railway Empire public folder? I don't. Well, let's change that. Railway Empire. Let's save what I've got here. We have the raw data here, so really anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together can work with this raw data as they see fit. Now, here's the other question. Where am I saving this stuff? Ah, yes. In my temporary folder. That's where I should be doing all this. Railway Empire Consumption Demand Work in Progress .ods. Right, I'll just upload that then. Does it even open here? Hey, it does kind of open. Sweet. Okay, getting that link. Anyone with this link can view. That should be fine. Alright, let me know if that works. So there you go, you can play along at home too, and if you have some great solutions you can bat them back towards me. But for now, I'm still working with this. Luckshad and saying thanks. Oh, there's bound to be some people. Oh my goodness, I think there's more people watching this than would normally tune in already. Okay, play around with that, and if you've got some things that work really well, ping me back with them, and I'll bring them up on stream too. Because it might be a whole lot better than something I can make here. Again, my Excel foo is pretty weak. I don't work with these much. Spreadsheet's bringing in the viewers, as well it should. This is what the Perfect Hands is really all about. The game is just a medium through which we explore the data that we crunch externally. Still, pigs. How do we handle pigs? There is an industry demand for them. The industry demand is going to be... Actually, this is probably an easier way to calculate it, because if there's 24 pigs make 16 sausages and 16 leather, so it would be all the demand for sausages and all the demand for leather. Ooh, no. What would it be? Dang, I don't actually know. What's a good way to throw this into our demands calculation? Pigs are the only thing that splits into 2 resources. So how I deal with that calculation, I don't know. Ah, well, screw it. I'll just pass it by for now. Vegetables. Sauerkraut wants vegetables, and I think it's the only one that does. It is. And it's a 1-to-1. So the vegetable industry demand is only the sauerkraut demand. And do I have total demand throughout all of this? Hey, I do. Okay, wood is used in a lot of things. Wood is used for paper, for one. Oh, that is a strange one. 4.8 makes 16. Huh. 4.8 makes 16. Well, then the industry demand is just the paper demand. Where's paper? There we go. Paper demand divided by 16 and times 4.8. Easiest way to think about it. So the paper demand for wood is really quite low. 316 people are watching this, Jake. Let's be honest, 316 wannabe Germans are watching this. Well, they could chip in. I'd be more than happy. Right, furniture is 1-to-1 with wood. So the second industrial demand for wood is just the same as what our number for furniture is, 116. What else demands wood? I think tools do. Oh god, smoked ham needs wood. Half of the smoked ham demands are to be measured in wood. So it's steamed hams over 2. Great, but now I need another column. Oh, it inserts it on the wrong side. How can this be? Also, how do I move these columns? Wet. Okay, well let's just undo that and slam a new one over here. There you go, industry demand 4, and I hope that this updated. It didn't. It really didn't, because I made it so sloppily. There you go. Get all of these. Hopefully I don't need yet another one. Unskilled play tick. Right, we added the smoked hams. What else needed wood, though? Tools need wood. Hopefully that's the last one that does. Oh no, the clocks need wood as well. Okay, half of the tools thing is in... Tools are in wood. So that is... Tool demand. Tool. Over 2. Tools are really good. Look at the low amount of tools you need to produce to fulfill demand. That's pretty great. Fortunately, tons of wood is produced inside the Perfect Hands of 504, so it should be more than enough to fulfill all of these demands. Let's bring you over here. Let's update this once again. And bring you right down. So, what's the demand for... What was this, by the way? This was for tools. We need them for clocks as well. Now I think we're done with the wood. So, half of the clocks one is wood demand. So... Clocks over 2. So straight away, these numbers are a little concerning, and because they're very not the same. They are really dissimilar. So balancing, it's going to be a big balancing act for how this goes. Surely you should use total M2 P2 instead of adding them together. No? Don't know what you mean. I should add here that this is total demand for 100%, or else I will forget that this is not my 50% demand thing. Also, these are way too wide. Could I make this a... Can I just call it, like, industry demand 1? Do it like so. Bring it over here. And make all of these... There we go. Make it a lot narrower. Aids the readability for me. Okay, so there's the total wood demand at 458. And again, this is just assuming 200,000 population places. If we were to make them 500,000, suddenly the wood desires go up quite a lot. But that might even be more realistic, because that, as long as this is double this, we're in the clear. If it's more than double, we're not so in the clear, but we still could be. Someone post the link to XL Empire on Steam. Yeah, feel free to pass around the link to this consumption and demand work in progress thing whenever people ask. Because if anybody wants to work at home with this as well, they're more than welcome to it. Right, sausages I don't think are used in anything. Pastries aren't used in anything. Wool most certainly is. I don't have the link. Nobody's posting around, but here we go. There you go. Awesome. I was already beaten to it by Luxshaden. How about that? Okay, wool. Wool is needed for clothes, so industry demand is 1-to-1 for clothes. When I did the Perfect Hansa in Patrician 4, clothes were one of two things I did not fulfill demand for, because it's actually an imperfect balance. Ooh, interesting. Industrial demand is larger than regular demand for wool. That makes wool an excellent thing to fulfill everybody's base need for because it's so cheap. Very little wool required, a hefty amount of it produced. I'll probably give everyone wool. There's little reason not to. Right, is there any other demand for wool? I'd be surprised if there is. Very easy to confuse wool with wood, but I'm not seeing it there. Hops. There is no demand for hops at all, except for when we're making beer. Now, the Germans love beer. Although beer is something that the Germans consume by the truckload, it is far and away the most consumed good within a German city. That would normally make me go, yeah, no beer for these guys, it's too expensive and I could fulfill demand other ways. But in this case, I cannot. The only thing I can do with hops is produce beer, and as we can see, 108 hops are produced every month inside my Hansa, or that's the limit of what we can produce. So we must produce them into beer, and then that's going to aid with the fulfillment. So it has to get used one way or the other. How does the hops to beer ratio work? 1 hop is 1 beer, so the industrial demand for hops equals the same as the demand for beer. And there we go. Straight away, the demand for hops is enormous, and this is purely based on industrial demand, 429. That's 4 times what we produce, so I wouldn't even be able to supply half of the Hansa at 200,000 pop with beer. That's okay though. I could give a quarter of the Hansa beer, and the other 3/4 would get, say, leather or clothes or tools to meet them with fulfillment. I only need to give a city its total demand for 14 goods out of 27. But I do need to meet that actual demand. Recht, where were we at now? Beer itself is not used for anything, so it doesn't need any industrial demand. Sauerkraut is used in preservers. I can't help but feel I won't be doing this. Then again, the sauerkraut and steel to preservers ratio is pretty good. I make twice as many preservers out of the sauerkraut. The question is, are preservers consumed differently from sauerkraut? The answer is no. So as long as steel isn't used for too many other things, preservers look like a great thing to produce. Now, this is all theoretical because I still need to set up the industry to produce all of these things. I have a total of about 180 industries to work with, but the question is if it's going to work out that way for me. I don't know yet, but I'm sure I'll find out. Jake really is a German at heart. Look at all this spreading. This from a Dutchman. Right, lost my train of thought there. Sauerkraut is... The industrial demand is half of the demand for preservers. So preservers over 2. There we go, 87. And that should be the only thing sauerkraut is used for. I don't see it elsewhere on here. So let's work our way down. Leather. Leather is demanded by clothes and I think furniture. Furniture? Wood and leather. So first of all, clothes, it's a 1:2 ratio. One leather makes 2 clothes. So the industrial demand for leather is clothes over 2. And what was it for furniture? It's also furniture over 2. So furniture over 2. Grand. So the overall demand for leather is quite low. The leather doesn't get naturally produced, it gets slaughtered out of pigs. So I guess the best way to look at this is how much leather can we have? It might be that the best way to calculate this is to look at this number and say, okay, how do pigs go into that? I get 16 sausages and 16 leather out of that. So I might even just say total production. I might make these a special case. It's bad to have special cases for this, but we do have a special case. So the total amount of sausages we make is going to be the pigs. What was it? Divided by 24 and times by 16. Ugh, I don't like that number. Is that right, though? Seems about right. 2/3? Yeah, I'll go with that. I do not like how this cuts off, though. It's an absolute number, though. This calculation doesn't matter. There's always going to be this amount of pigs flowing out. But I still want it here. I wonder if you can insert notes in this. Alright, you know what? 242 in red. And I will remember that red means it's a special pig-related conundrum. So, where's our leather? There we go. And helps me remember that that's our leather production, and this is our leather demand. So, this is great. We've got so much more leather, it looks like we could jack up the amount of size factor. Recht, clothes. Oh, right, no, I did both of them. Clothes are not used in any industry. Fruit is used in industry. It is used for the gingerbread. I don't think I'll ever use the gingerbread, but it's still good to have the numbers in here. So half of gingerbread's demand is in clothes. So if we go equals the gingerbread number divided by 2, there we go. And between those two, we get pretty much 100% total demand met with that, but 100% is not what we're looking for, is it? Brandy. Brandy is not used for anything. Milk is used for cheese, and probably nothing else. Oh, is fruit used for anything else, by the way? We don't smoke our ham with fruit, and we don't make porcelain fruits, so I guess we're alright here. Ah, fruit is used for brandy. I missed that. So fruit is equal to the brandy demand. Where's our brandy at? There we go. Okay, so just like that, oof, it's gone way higher. So all the more reason to completely cut gingerbread production out of here. Bad for the money, but money is probably not going to be a concern. Milk. Milk is used for cheese with a 1-to-1 ratio. So the industrial demand for milk is simply going to be equal to the regular demand for cheese. Cheese is not used for anything. Sugar beets are used for things, though. Sugar beets are used for... Ooh, oh, this could be complicated. There is a natural demand for sugar beets. It's low, but sugar beets are also demanded for the gingerbread. By the way, can I check gingerbread and see where it's used? No, I can only see that part. I'm almost certain I'm going to be cutting out gingerbread, so I'm probably doing myself a disfavor by even adding it. But sugar beets is half of the gingerbread. Gingerbread over 2. I'm probably going to take these gingerbread related ones and colour them in accordingly. 116, 116, and 116. I will mark them in grey to say I probably don't want these. Everything else is probably kosher, but gingerbread is bad magic. Milk is used for milk steak, as Charlie... What? I don't know what you're getting at there, Orson. Something flew right over my head. Okay, so that's the only sugar beet use. What about paper? Paper is used for newspapers at a 1-to-1 ratio. And there's no raw demand for... No, there is a raw demand for paper. Okay, interesting. I wonder what the demand for newspapers is. Again, it's 1-to-1. This is taking our wood and turning it into a lot of different things. But as we can see, the supply for wood is good enough for 100% demand already. So nothing to worry about there, probably. Gingerbread isn't used in anything. Coal most certainly is. Coal is used in steel, porcelain as well, and not cars. Just steel and porcelain. Well, it's half of the steel. Aha, here's a good point though. The steel itself, there's none of there. So we're looking at this from the wrong way. We need to calculate the entire demand. Oh, I did this wrong, didn't I? Didn't I? If we include paper as something that wood's needed for, we shouldn't just be counting the raw demand. We should be counting the total demand. So all of these ones that we'd be doing industrial demands for aren't right. It should be this number that we're looking at. Yeah, that's true. Jake, use a pivot index. You are out of your mind if you think I know what you mean by that. Right, this wasn't a big deal until we started getting multiple parts of the supply chain coming along here. Because, yeah, just all of a sudden the sauerkraut demand has gone through the roof, hasn't it? And all of these woody demands. Oh, this has gotten more complicated. Why does it always have to get more complicated? Just wanted to make a nice, clean, perfect, industrialized, locomotive-based logistical empire. There are going to be people that... ooh, I don't want to do that. There are going to be people that are good with their spreadsheets, that are sickened with how I am doing this. But hey, you have an opportunity to do this even better yourself at home. I've linked the spreadsheet. It's got the raw details. And with the raw details, you can do these kinds of calculations in your own way. But I'm not doing them that way. I'm doing them my own way, which are probably pretty bad ways. So yeah, should be looking at total demand, not anything else. It wasn't until I got to newspapers that I started considering that, but just like that, the demand for wood is going to go up. Oh well. I believe you misclicked the second leather industry. No, I rather think that it does need to point to the total demand for furniture. So I think I'm right. And if I am wrong, well, what a shame for me. Right, where we were getting at, the coal. The coal demand is the total demand for steel. Oh, now going over here has become quite a bit harder. Over 2, right? Yeah, because one bit of coal makes 2 bits of steel. That's good to know. But coal is also the same thing. It's half of the porcelain. So it is the porcelain total demand divided by 2 as well. Okay. Coal demand looks low right now, but it'll grow when we figure out the iron and steel stuff, probably. Too many people in chat enjoy this, so too little punishment, says Worm. It makes me want to do my taxes as well. My blood is singing in columns and lines. It's hard to really describe how I feel about this. I'm not really sure if this brings me joy. It brings me a strange sense of satisfaction. It reminds me of chopping wood. Perhaps not. I actually enjoy chopping wood. There are complex emotions at stake here. Now, the iron, because there were only 2 uses for coal, right? Iron is also used for steel, but it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So you are simply equal to the steel. Matthew Steele. I did the right one here, right? Yeah, I did. These things are so broad that it's hard to read them all. I definitely made these too wide. Industrial demand. How's that? Much better. Much tighter. Wait, what? Much tighter. Much easier to read. Don't like staring at all this white. Normally when I make a spreadsheet I make all the tiles slightly grey to make it easier on the eyes, but I haven't done that here. So we've got the steel demand for iron, but iron is also used for what? Wait, is iron not used for anything else? Oof. Then all the iron is going to go into steel production. And since steel is made of coal and iron, which have no other base demands, unless there is there's no base demand for either of them. So we're going to pumping out steel like nobody's business. Interesting. Right, salt is used in a few different things. Salt is used for sauerkraut at a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's simply equal to sauerkrauts. Salt will also probably be used in that ham, right? Smoked ham, salt, half of the smoked ham. We haven't even seen smoked hams going on here. So smoked ham, over 2. Okay, and I think that's it for salt. Just 2 uses. 2 is all I'm seeing. Good enough. See, we're working our way down this list. We'll be done in no time. Steel. Steel's a bit more complicated here. Steel is wanted for... Hang on, what was the preserver wanting? Yeah, the preserver does want steel. 3.6 to 12. That is an unpleasant calculation there. Does that mean it's one? No, it's under a third. Using tools first, though. Half of the tools. So, I think tools are going to play a big part in all this. The Germans love their tools. Well, they're going to be made to love their tools. So good, we got the tools there. And preservers are at 12. Divided by 12 times 3.6. So it is this preserver divided by 12 and times 3.6. My order of operations there is probably bad. Is it though? How does it like that? Let me try some bracketing. No, seems to work. It seems to work just fine. What a weird way to do it. But hey, gets this number on the steel at least. And that is indeed for the preservers. Good. Steel was also used for cars. 1-to-1 ratio on cars. That's a rough one. Suddenly the steel demand is through the roof, but I should be able to crank out tons of steel. Probably. Demand for 100% being high there. The tricky thing is, though, this is the demand. I'm gonna have to start manipulating it, pushing up and down different values to see how we're gonna do with that. Because I could just cut out the cars altogether and see what that leaves us with. But then all the steel would go towards only tools, and the demand for tools is pretty low. Well, just the tools, I guess. There was also the Preservers. You probably don't want demand at 200k, but demand per city times supplied cities. Then you can partially cross out goods. That's a good point, but then the numbers start getting really low. And low numbers are bad. That is an excellent point, though. But that's alright, we can have this, clone it over and make different versions of it, can't we? Right, newspapers are up next. And I don't think newspapers are used at all. No, they're not. So next up, peat. Peat I also don't think is used at all. It just has a base demand. It's pretty low as well, so peat is going to be great to ship around. However, the maximum production of peat in the whole world, the whole Germanic world, is only 48. That's tiny. The level 5 production of that seems awfully low. Go away, bring us to the game, find us a peat production facility. 0.8 per month. At max level it's 10 times that, so it is 8 per month. How many of those are there on the entire map? I should know this because I was doing it yesterday quite a lot, but only 6 of them. Okay, so not many places are going to get their peat demand. Yeah, poor peaty. Feldspar as well, but Feldspar there's no demand for. It's only used industrially, and Feldspar is entirely used up by the making of porcelain at a 1-to-1 ratio. So the Feldspar industrial demand is exactly the same as the porcelain demand. And again, that brings up an interesting idea here. We only have enough Feldspar to do under half of the total demand. That's under half, so I couldn't even say, right, that's fine for the whole Hansa. So, worth considering right there. But this could balance out quite right, because I could give some people peat and some people Feldspar, and there it is. That's 1 of the 14 for all of them. And I'm sure there's enough to give some of them both. And then maybe those people that get both won't get paper or brandy, stuff like that. Alright, easy peasy. Furniture's not used, smoke ham's not used, tools are used. Tools are used to create cars and clocks. Cars and clocks. Half of every clock is a tool. No. Half of every tool is a clock. So we get our clock number and divide it by 2, and that's the industrial demand for tools. And every tool gives me 2 cars, so it's also the car demand divided by 2. And just like that, the demand for tools is quite low, but by doing that, I've shot up the demand for steel, and that has increased the demand for coal. Now, here's a problem. We only produce 80 units of coal on the map. There is no way in God's green earth we can produce all the coal needed to fulfill all the demand for steel to meet all the demand for cars, and I strongly suspect that cars are the problem here. The coal is largely being eaten up by the steel, which for the most part is being eaten up by cars. So I honestly think we're not going to use cars, which means we're not going to use oil, which is a really weird situation to be in, because that means there's an RGO that I have 0 interest in having, because there's no natural consumption of it, and it's only used to produce cars. And cars are so expensive on steel and tools that it just doesn't make sense. However, if I got rid of cars altogether, the demand for iron comes crashing down, but the consumption of iron is really low. I think however you cut it, the cars thing is going to have to be treated as gravely suspect. Same with the gingerbread. I'll have those marked off as you probably don't want these. What about leftover steel into cars in only a few core cities? Well, is there even going to be leftover? There's not going to be a lot of it. Sorry, coal, not steel. Leftover coal, perhaps. We'll find out. At least the Feldspar can eat up all the coal, because that uses up the Feldspar and fulfills demand for porcelain. But I definitely want the tools, because I should 100% give everybody tools, because it's such a low-hanging fruit of a demand to fulfill. And then everything else should go into Feldspar. And the tools eats up the steel, which eats up the iron as well. This is a difficult equation because there's a lot of elastic variables here. And as one grows and shrinks, the others are also going to grow and shrink. Tricky, very tricky. Okay. Not done yet though. There's no industrial demand for clocks or preservers, but there is industrial demand for oil, purely through cars. And again, we probably won't care about this, but it's that over 2. Again, treat that as highly suspicious, because I probably don't want that. Is Berlin considered in your equations, or have you rightly left them out? They are left out. There are 59 cities on the map, and I'm only counting 58 because Berlin is considered to be gone. I'm not even considering that Berlin will get any of this. Okay, so we have the total demand for 100% if everybody in the Hansa were size 2. But this isn't a really good way to look at it, though. What I need is... Oh, jinx, I need somebody smarter than me to figure out the best way to pluck this apart. Because I only need half of these to be met 100%, and I'm okay. I don't know. I do not know of a good way to do that. Please check cell N21. It is porcelain under 2, and that's because 1 bit of coal gives me 2 bits of porcelain. That seems right to me. It seems you modified the formula. I did. What are you talking about? The demand for coal is half of the demand for porcelain from that industry, the feldspar industry. Make it so the total demand is double the supply. The question is how to manipulate this. Or what to do with this. Berlin will supply via wagon. Not if I take everything out by train, it won't. I think that'll be okay. Yeah, I only supply half the things at 100%, but it's not that simple. I think the better way is to do this by city. So perhaps the best way to look at it is this is for one city at 200k. So what I could do is have a thing here. These have the, I just want to tighten this up a bit. Okay, good. I also want to keep this one here so it's kind of segregated and I can tell what's going on there. Honestly, I should segregate all of these, make it easier on my poor eyes here. Not that one. No, not that. Good enough. Recht. This is one city's demand at 200k. Now, again, 200,000 might not be the right number here. Might very much not be the right number. I can't say. I can say, however, that the demand for wood is astronomical. Oh, it's just tricky. How would I make it... How would I visualize this such that this city gets these goods, this city gets these goods? No, what I could say is this supplies this many cities. Yeah, that would make sense, but I might have to... Gonna make a duplicate of this. Can I just do this? Can I say... Copy? Copy sheet? Is this gonna work? Yeah, it did. Great. Well, I think it worked great. So, let's rename this one to be City Play. Okay. Okay. Let's make some rash decisions here. Let's say there are not going to be any cars. We don't want cars at all, because the sheer amount of cars needed to meet demand is way too high to justify. So in our world, there are no cars. By simply deleting it, that's going to throw me off. I'll think there are cars. So instead, I should just say... What'll I do then? I'll have them... Crikey, I don't know. I do not know. Ah, I know, I can do strike through, right? What's strike through in Open Office? Control S? No, Control S is save. Do they even have strike through? Strike through only became like a thing in the past 10 years. I mean, it was around before, but it was very uncommon to see it used much. I still liked it. I always loved strike through. Strike through is only a font option in Excel. Yeah, but this is Open Office. Change case to full width hiragana? I think not. Styles and formatting? Whatever I did made it chug. I didn't like that. Hide row? No, hiding it'll still make it pop up in these kinds of calculations. I want it gone, but I want to know that it's gone. Right, you know what? I can just delete all these numbers here. And I'll put my cars in red to say that we're not doing cars, except red is already used for the little piggies. So there we go. Pinking you out. Ah, pink doesn't look like it's rejected. Let's put them in black. and then put the text in white. There we go. It doesn't stop there, though. I'm in the firm belief that gingerbread should be wiped out. I can't see any way that gingerbread is going to be helping me here. Unless I have such an overproduction of fruit, wheat, and the other thing. But I don't think that's going to happen. So gingerbread, we're also just going to say no to that. And I'm just going to 0 these. I'm going to delete them, forget zeroing them. Okay, and now the industrial demand on grain, fruit, and sugar beet has gone down. And now I want a question on number of cities this can support. So how many cities can we support with this? It's going to be this divided by that. Is that the right way to look at it? Lame, I want cars, says Nameblub. Cars require way too much steel. Not going to happen. This doesn't seem right. I feel like I'm bringing in too much. No, maybe it is. This assumes that all the derived goods are produced, and maybe that's a good assumption to make. No, it's a terrible assumption to make, because the supply here is going to go up and down. Almost 400 System Aggo. People laughed at the idea of an eSport XL championship. Oh, okay. There are too many elastic variables here for me to really wrap my head around. This is tough. Also, I don't like the way this is going. This should be formatted to be a... Oh my days, how do I even format this properly? Format cells to be a number. How do I round it up, though? I want it to be a whole number. And I didn't want it rounded up, I want it rounded down. What happens if I put in 55.9? It rounds up. Tragic. Equals round? Does it know round? No, no it doesn't, although perhaps it needs parentheses. Well, it recognizes that. The floor function dividing by 0. Yes, yes you are. 49. Is that rounding down? No, it just is 49. It's kind of fitting that we deny the onset of the automobile in a railway empire, so I'm not opposed with that. There's a round down in Excel. Yeah, but I'm using OpenOffice. Just to complicate matters further. I really should have done this in Google Docs so more people could jump on in. But I don't have it set up for that. Okay, this is getting complexicated for me. So if we were to produce everything, I have enough to support that. Okay. Jake, glad that the map I found helped. Sadly, I did not find an easy way to get all the cities and RGOs there, but it looks very helpful now. Yeah, it was a bit painstaking, but I did sort this map out, but it would have been a lot more painstaking without your supply of the German map, so thank you, EU4. I'm not reading all that right now, Excavate. I'm not here to learn Excel. I'm here to figure this part out. But hey, if somebody else can figure it out and throw the information my way, all the better. How do we know the ideal way to sort these goods out between all these cities such that the size of the cities is as large and has to be uniform as possible? It's called the round down function. Thank you, that's useful. Round down, da 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 da. Let's bring in all of these. And it doesn't like the divide by 0 things here. Why does it do that? Why doesn't it just say infinite? The industrial demand for pigs isn't showing up here because it's given there. It's given there, but it doesn't matter that we don't get a number on piglets because pigs don't support cities. Pigs support the industries, and only the industries. Didn't Jake study maths? That was a long time ago. I've thrown most of that out of my head. We don't care about gingerbread, we don't care about cars, so that makes all of this work out okay. So we have, if we consider it from this way, we would need the total number here equals all of that. What do you mean name? I guess it doesn't like the ones that have zeros in it, does it? No? What? Did it not put in the parentheses for me? There we go. Okay. 706. 706 cities can be provided with 100% of their demands here. And I need this number to be... Wait, this doesn't seem right. Why are you telling me that 0 people can be... Ah, cripes, because it's using this number. This number doesn't tell me the total production given all of this nonsense. Ah, crumbs, that isn't right. That isn't right at all. Why don't you try floor, Jake, the obvious function? Because I haven't used Excel or OpenOffice or anything like that for anything complicated in a long, long time. No, this isn't giving me the total production of all of these things. Because the thing is, the amount of pastries that I pump out is elastic. I could make more and I could make fewer. You can't oversupply cities, so you need to round down all the numbers to the city count. Yes. Yes. Did floor? No, floor didn't work. It doesn't like floor. Hopefully round down is doing its magic. This is getting messy and probably incorrect because I don't have the production of all these because I don't know how much I'm going to produce. There's got to be someone out there who knows exactly what should be done here, but it's not me. The last column tells you if you can supply all the cities or not with said resource. You cannot add them, as there is not a total of the same type of information. Well, what I'm trying to think of is I need 14 cases of I can supply this city for every city. So imagine these are binary. I've got 32 ticks on being able to supply places with grain. I've got 48 ticks on being able to supply places with wool. Great. And now I need 14 ticks for each city so that every city can get 50% of its demands, because every one of them wants 27 ticks. They want half of 27 ticks. Need to add a column with the numbers produced by industry. Yes, except the amount we produce per industry is variable. So that's difficult. Why don't you look at every city in separately? Oh, that's rough. That is rough. A rough way to look at it. There's got to be an answer to putting this together, but the answer is evading me. There's people screaming at their screens at this. It's going to be doubly so for the YouTube scrubs. This would be easier if I knew the amount of everything that I'm producing. But industrially, that is. But again, that amount can change. Maybe I could take it one step at a time. Oh, right, I got some weird things going on here. Well, whatever, I don't like this column altogether. It can go away. Maybe I can think of it like so. I want to provide every city with grain, for example, because grain is vastly produced. Let's go back to the original one that assumed that I was supplying every city with 200,000. No, this doesn't work because the size factor might go up. And then suddenly the amount of grain that I'm giving everybody changes. Continue that until you supply all cities with at least 50... Oh, right, no. For example, you can supply all 62 cities with grain. You must choose what cities to which you want to supply vegetables and da-da-da-da-da. That's great, except if I find that I'm not using up all my grain, and it goes to all cities and all pastries and all that, I might go, okay, I should raise the amount of population in each city, and that's going to change the calculation for all of them. Start with the primary goods, add industry one by one with the rest. A column for total potential production of industry would be useful. Yeah, this is total production here, but it currently only handles RGOs. It would be great to have a formula here where every bit of pastry that I produce takes away from the amount of grain that's in flow. Let's go back to our city play thing that I completely made a bollock of and delete all of that. Delete everything. Get rid of it all. Now. Here's a solution for 60% overall satisfaction, says Ave. Hope I understood the problem correctly. Wow. I need access to that. It's locked. Access denied. Also, I don't need 60% satisfaction, I need 50, because the last 10% I can get with a museum in every place, but if it's 60% overall satisfaction, hopefully there's just a 60% variable that can be edited. Alright, let's have a look and see what we have here. My gut tells me this isn't right, but let's download it and have a look. This is right. This is the episode. This is the part of the class where people share their solutions with the rest of the class. All right, let's go to you. Let's see if I can bring this in without ruining my life by sharing all of my personal details with the world. That's what studio mode was made for in this. What would this be? G. Spreadsheets. Good enough. Trim off the top. Make the whole thing a bit smaller. Yeah, we'll look at your solutions and see how this, see if this works. And that should be okay. There we go. How many hours do you reckon this will take for the perfect Hansa, Jake? Oh, it'll almost certainly take less than Patrician 4. Patrician 4 had all the build-up of all the industry and all the houses in every city. This, we don't have to do any of that kind of build-up. We just have to make the lines for them. Yeah. If we were to assume that, wait, average consumption 0.6 equals. I see. Total consumption is at 100% for a lot of things, but there's 0% consumption of cheese, for example. So what, everybody's just drinking milk? There's 144 milk at stake. Well, surplus is a problem here. We don't want surplus. If there's surplus of something, that means it could be fed back in to make the cities bigger, and we want the cities to be larger. Rows with zero demand don't count for the average. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, that's a good point, though, because the consumption of pigs won't actually contribute towards the fulfillment demand for each city, for example, because pigs are only used for industry. Talk us through this, Ave. What are we looking at? I'm not fond of the surplus, that's for sure, but we have 329. It's being used in industry. It's being used for just pastries. Yeah, it looks like we're just making pastries to fulfill demand. That's pretty good. Surplus, which is less good, but for that you could just bring up the size factor to something like. Hold on, this is view only, so I can't edit anything here. Okay. Salt is a huge bottleneck. There's nothing saying we have to use salt. If salt is... we got the supply chain stuff here. What was salt used for again? Salt is used for the smoked hams and for the... Oh, cripes, that means that there is industrial demand for pigs, and I missed that. Whoops. But it might be better to make sausages out of pigs than go for smoked hams, because it uses wood as well, which is used for a lot of other things. Pigs, salt, wood. What else is salt used for again? Oh yeah, it was used for the sauerkraut. So it's a good way to put vegetables to use, because otherwise vegetables are just hanging around. Because the production of vegetables around here is up at 330, way below demand. So we don't want that surplus of it. Surely we would want to use the salt. Where's the salt here? Oh wait, there's natural demand of salt. Oh my. Regardless though, the surplus... Oh no, there is industrial demand. Which is M30... you're using that to make smoked hams. Are we using them for sausages? We are. Sausages and smoked ham. Okay, interesting that. There's not enough salt to get around. But that's okay though. Because salt could be used to fulfill some people's demand for smoked hams or sauerkraut. And the others could get, say, peat. Only 40% fulfillment of peat, but that's okay. He already said salt is a bottleneck, yes, and I am affirming that. I don't like this, though. That surplus rubs me the very wrong way. Why in God's name are the monkeys? I thought I got rid of the monkeys. I hate freaking seeing monkey faces. Right. There's a lot of surplus of wood, which surprised me. Wood can be used for a lot of things. Tools are easy to reach 100% fulfillment for. It's good to see the 100% fulfillment here, though. You can take the problem from the solution. For 14 full cities, I would need X amount of each good. Why 14 cities? 14's a tricky one. Why that? Some things it makes sense to have an excess of if we can't use them otherwise. I'm just very surprised that pigs would be one of them. I guess we don't have the salt to turn them all into smoked hams, and the only other option is to turn them into sausages. But what if we assumed that the size factor was larger? If the size factor was larger, then more people would be eating the grain, and we wouldn't have a surplus of grain. They'd also be eating the surplus of vegetables, and consuming the surplus of wood. I think the size factor can go up and up. Is that something that can be changed here? Can we edit the size factor and still find what takes us? And remember, average consumption needs to be 0.5 or above, not 0.6 or above. Pig production will require a hard ceiling, so as to not require ever more bulk storage, no, if it has no full use endpoint. I can edit the production of everything, so I could certainly reduce the production of pigs. You should be able to copy this into your own Google Docs and edit. Yeah, I could certainly make my own copy. Hang on, let's get rid of that for a second whilst I make my own copy. Lest we accidentally click on YouTube and it shows off all my favourite VTubers. That was a good moment. Not my moment, of course. Thinking about Lucky. Okay, let's bring you back then. This should be my own version of it. So what if our size factor was actually, say, 2.5? Suddenly we have negative surplus, which is a deficit. Yeah, things like sausages and pastries start really hurting here. Never too late to become one yourself. Good grief. I did it before it was cool. Oh, right, these are just values. It doesn't read anything, you've just put in the value for them. Interesting. I didn't make what you see here look, Shadden. This is from, who was it again? Ave 11. My gut just tells me this ain't right. This ain't as big as we can go. It also doesn't give me the answer of who gets what. What would be good to know is, for example, all places get grain, all places get pastry. 50 of the cities get wood. 17 of the cities get milk. 8 cities get coal. That's the kind of stuff that's good to know. That's the hard part, who gets what. Well, that as long as I know the number of cities that get each of them, I can use my map to ascertain how that goes. Because once I have the numbers of how many cities get which good, then it's simply a case of figuring out where to hub resources and where to have my industry. So I would look at something like, ooh, where is all the coal? Well, all the coal is vastly down to the south. So I'll have a big steel industry here and here. Still feel like we're not quite getting perfection with this, but I can't point at exactly what. Spreadsheet stream really was the inevitable end point of your streaming. I like to think this isn't the end point. Although staring at this will be the end of me. Can it be a perfect Hansa without beer and cars? We are getting beer, aren't we though? Oh, whoa, 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 there's no beer. But why is there no beer? Beer only uses hops. So if we don't make any beer, we're just wasting these hops. Beer only requires hops. And since that's the only use for hops, this is a waste. That ain't right. That is not right at all. Is it a 1-to-1? 1 hop, 1 beer? It is. So for every hop that is produced, and there are 108 hops coming in, there should be a target production of 108 beers. Why did wool change? Did wool change? No, it didn't. It didn't. But now there's not a surplus here. So now the target consumption here is... Why are these raw numbers? I don't understand. How did you calculate target consumption? Ah, right, it's going to be a factor of this against this, because this is 200,000 demand for all cities, isn't it? Yes, it is, it is. So really, this is only about 25%. It's a raw number. Put what you want there. Can't just put... Wait, what does this do? This does the P column. Oh. Oh. Well, it's 25%. Which means a quarter of the cities can get that. But what's a quarter of 58? There might not be anyone in the world who can figure that one out. But that trimmed away the hops there. Ooh, average consumption's just changed a fair bit there. If we were doing this correctly, we'd be done already. Danzig solved this in 1947. It's only been one evening. Surplus of wool. Again, why is that? We're not making any clothes. Is that because the leather is all used up? The demand for leather is quite low. But the production of leather is only about 200 or so, isn't it? I don't have the total production in here, but I do have it in my little spreadsheet. 242. It makes sense to fulfill base leather, but any extra leather could go into clothes. Target production 101.5. Where did that come from? Every pig is being slaughtered into leather. So... Oh, this is complicated. It's even more complicated because I didn't make this, so I don't know all the thoughts that went into it. We need to change column L to population demand across at 200,000. There we put in only raw resources like grain or milk provided by primary... Well, the link to this is shared in the chat. If you have a better way of doing it, by all means grab it, put it in and share it. Because I'm very interested in the way... I can see a lot of ways that this can be tweaked to squeeze more out, but ultimately that means the size factor would have to go up. And I don't like the fact that a lot of these are just raw numbers that are being shoved in without any reference to these. Can we get a link in chat again for the for this spreadsheet for other people that want to play along at home? Right now it's just linear programming. The travel is what comes next. Random stranger says, no thanks, I'm good. They don't want to get involved. Well, too bad. I'll post it if need be. There you go. Unless Abbe just makes it private again so nobody else can steal the homework. I feel like this 200,000 size thing is pulling us back more than anything else, but it's so hard to have these linked together. I would like to just be able to just edit this number to see what kind of size works, and then find what gets us a good average consumption, and then go, okay, great, this works, and then we have 50 places getting grain here, 20 people getting veggies here, etc., etc. Jake, Rune Factory 5 is delayed to early 2020 in the West. Ha! Sucks to be those people that can't barely squeak through the Japanese and enjoy the game. But I can. Industry demand is 58. The industry demand is from clothes. But there's no demand from clothes. Right, it's going into furniture. Right, because if the furniture doesn't eat it up, then the wood becomes an excess. So I don't think there's any difference between using it in furniture or in clothes. Actually, it's pretty much exactly the same, because one leather either makes a bit of furniture or a bit of clothes. However, then it comes down to what's the demand, clothes versus furniture. And people like to eat 1 bit of furniture a month, or 1.5 bits of clothes, so it is better to make furniture. Excellent point. So I can't deny that leather is better put into furniture than clothes, so we are going to have another naked Hansa. Interesting. Watch the train spreadsheet brute force some novel maths to solve the traveling salesman. Alright, that's interesting, because that tells me that clothes are out. Sauerkraut being out because salt is a... I feel like I'm going over things that Abby has already figured out. But if I don't do that, I can't be satisfied with the solution, can I? Sauerkraut is 1.5, but salt is... Oh yeah, salt has a base demand, right? So salt isn't going into anything. No sauerkraut, no smoked ham. Well, a little bit of smoked ham. Wait, how are they getting any smoked ham? That requires salt. Ah, right, of course, there's industrial demand, but then there's surplus. If there's surplus salt and surplus vegetables, then of course there should be sauerkraut. Luck Shadden puts it into good words. The problem we're trying to solve here is, given our resource constraints and how resources are converted into goods, what is the greatest population we can satisfy to 50%? And it's exactly that. This is a good Hansa, but it's not a perfect Hansa. It does show that 200,000 across the whole area is perfectly achievable. Are we sure that the RGOs and their production values are static? We are not. That's why it's okay that some places go a little low and a little high. But I don't think it changes to a vast degree. Oh, but the RGO's production, I am fairly certain, is static. It's not like in 100 years we're suddenly going to be able to produce more wheat than we're already constrained to. If we bring up the game for that, which means goodbye spreadsheet and goodbye my paint.net thing, I am all but certain that take this farm, for example. This is the maximum one grain farm could ever put out, 28 per month. I'm quite certain there's no research that suddenly makes industries do better. No, this is all about your company, not about the farms and RGOs. Okay. Welshman is getting scared by the amount of gameplay here. Don't worry, we'll come back to spreadsheets. I feel better already from that as well. Okay, I'm going to shelve this one for a bit because staring at this isn't going to make it any better for me. I might have to take some of my time on my days off to figure this one out better. We're onto something here, but it's not good enough. There's too much surplus, there are too many things not being baked in, and it's not giving me a usable value here, which is to say, how many cities get grain? How many cities get milk? If I had those numbers, then the next planning stage could go forward, and I can draw up the hubs. Sticky mate place linking in the simplex algorithm. Watching you do spreadsheets is better than trying to solve spreadsheets myself, says Lipips. Okay, well I'm going to have to take a mental break from this. Down you go. Instead, let's do something nice and simple. Let's just colour in some... connect the dots. I should figure out my express lines here. Figure out my express lines. So I'm going to make myself a little layer. I'm going to get myself a blue line, because blue feels like an express line, doesn't it? That's pretty good. A little lighter. Oh, that's nice. That's the line I want to ride. And I need it to be thin enough that it's not going to obscure things too much, but also thick enough that it's immediately visible on the map. Yeah, that seems alright. Maybe a little thinner, though. Too thin. Alright, groovy. Now, if I just do this as a line maker, this should be nice and good. Maybe 10%? Visibility can be achieved by a different color, maybe. Don't know what you're getting at there. Right, maybe it's better starting from the bottom because this is what I've already got done in the game, but linking up the cities as I have them. I'm not going to put in the precise nature of how I have them linked together, but I do need to make sure that, for example, I'm not going to weave it around the mountains here, because that's not important. What's important is where the connections are. So I know that you two go together, and that you indeed head up there. However, it's not quite like that, is it? It might as well be. I don't think it's of any particular importance that the T-junction there is slightly offset from the city itself. Probably a good idea to make a copy of the map before you start editing, even if you use layers. I have already done so, don't you worry. Do not you worry. Right, this one actually has a cutoff here, so that's fine. And then the one from Linz goes to Passau, and from Passau it connects down. Now there's nothing saying it has to remain this way, nothing at all, but this is what I've already drawn in, and I have no intention of changing these because the express lines are surprisingly of no importance. The reason I'm putting these in here is so that I have an express line with which to build my freight line around. The freight line is of significantly more importance, but I do need to have a reference point for where it is relative to these other lines. So from here we come out to here, and I believe you go both up and down. So actually you... Whoa, that's not what I'm looking for. You actually connect up like so, with this coming into here. And the piggies are almost obscured, but I can always lift the layer if I really want to see them. There's going to be a different layer done in for the freight goods anyway. So Munich here rolls over to Ulm. And Ulm does not brave the mountains. Ulm goes straight down like a lightning bolt to Zurich, who honestly goes down and around and up through here, but we're just saying it does that for simplicity's sake, which indeed heads up here. I'm checking this on my game as well. So that heads up to Basil, which goes to Freiburg, which actually goes all the way up to here to somewhere beginning with S. Where exactly though, I'm not all that sure. Which goes north still to... not Worms, actually. You come over here, don't you? Yeah, because Worms is next to where the water changes. That's over to Koblenz, which I believe itself heads straight up. Well, not straight up, but it takes a curvy way up to Cologne. And this is where we started building the whole network. Is there even any point in express lines? Do they actually have any effect on city size, says Stacks5x. No, they do not. I could get rid of all express lines and have nothing but freight. However, there's a lot of money to be made from express lines, and we also have some tasks to do that involve moving people around. In fact, if we come away from this and brave our way back to the game, one way or another, I'm going to have to transport 1.5 million passengers and get over 9,000 people out of Danzig and into Vienna. I suppose it's also going to help with this rail length, but that's not very important. Make Nuremberg the city with the largest pop. That should be easy at the end game, because I could smack a promoter on there and it'll big itself up. Station 2... well, that's a lot of stations. Okay, never mind that though. Never mind that. Lost my train of thought though. I really lost my train of thought. Cologne goes up to Essen, doesn't it? Yeah, but we already did that. And Essen goes over to Gütersloh. There's no point connecting up north from there because we don't have a robust network from there. However, Gütersloh does go through this mountain down into Kassel. And Kassel goes down to Frankfurt am Main, which is on the river. It has an offshoot around here for freight, but this isn't our freight line. This is purely our express line. You head down into Worms. Kind of sucks to live in Worms and want to go over to Cologne. But that's just a shame for them, isn't it? Ah, man, this is much easier on the brain than thinking even remotely about those spreadsheet problems. So this, I believe, is what we have thus far. Maybe I'm missing something. Didn't you come up a little bit? No, that is how you already come up a bit. And and it connects all the way over there. So the other question would be, how else do I want these ones to connect? I'm not actually sure that's something that's worth planning here. I should do what makes the most sense in the game, because there's going to be all sorts of considerations with the landscape. The express line doesn't matter so much in that. This stream is really providing a lot of insight into Jake's audience. In theory, doing only spreadsheets for 2 hours is a great viewer reduction strat. In practice, it worked terribly. Have you thought at all about the throughput and travel time of your express lines? No, that's not a concern. As long as the trains move fast, that's going to be okay, and there's not going to be any freight trains to slow them down, so I can use dedicated express lines. Besides, if I really wanted something fast, it wouldn't be the end of the world to just connect these two up. But I don't need to. All I really need to do is connect these people up with the freight that I want them to have. So I don't think I need to flesh this one out anymore. And if I do, it would be kind of pointless, because it's... in the end, this is something that matters more about how I do it in the game. Besides, I could tell myself something like, connect these two up. And then I find, oh, but it really doesn't work well. It's better to just have a line that goes and spreads out between the two and heads down. So, I don't see any need to continue on with that. I'm unsatisfied here. Oh, Jinx, this takes forever to save. This 10,000 by 10,000 pixel file. It's not a happy one. Alright. Let's go back to the Google Docs spreadsheet. I wonder if any bright ideas have come whilst just filling in blanks there. In the end, it doesn't really matter precisely, at least when it comes to the express lines. Wow, it actually tells me when there's a first-time chat from somebody in the chat there. Gandalf comes in saying, "I came for the spreadsheets." And that's how they started off here. Well, if you're so good with the spreadsheets, perhaps you could solve this problem for us. Given the amount of cities, and given the maximum production of each good, and given the consumption of each good, how do we ensure that every city gets their consumption demand for 14 different goods done for any given size of the city? This at least shows that 200,000 is a very doable number. But I would hate to just increment it. I'd hate to do, okay, what about 210,000 to calculate everything? 220,000 calculate everything. It feels like spreadsheets are designed exactly to figure this stuff out without that kind of manual mumbo jumbo. If you made your equations in the cells, it should auto-calculate. It should, but there's a lot of stuff here that's not entirely there, and that's difficult to get. I am low on ideas. Does anyone in chat have any brilliant ideas on how to piece this together? Otherwise, I'm probably just going to take the downtime and my days off to hammer out an answer here. And the answers I want are, this is the size that all 58 cities should be, and I expect the number to be between 200,000 and 400,000. And this is the number of each goods... no, this is a number of each good that the cities will get. So, 40 cities will receive grain. 15 cities will receive salt. That sort of stuff. If you want to do it manually, try to satisfy the largest population possible. Spreadsheet mod game, no. No heavens, no. I'm working on it, says Anuk Sedrai, or Sedral. One intermediate step you need right now is to see what you actually need to provide. But that's a variable. And, times G2. Alright, no, that's production, my mistake. It's a variable based on how large the cities are going to be. So I could call this need at, and we can edit this one to be, say, 250,000 population per person. And we would make this be that multiplied by D1, absolute D1, but absolute D1 would be divided by, what is it? Is it 10,000? Yeah, that seems about right. So these are the needs. I'm getting rid of the grey ones. Well, I'm making sure they're grey so that I don't confuse them for things that have actual demand. If every city is at that, each city is going to need this much, and the total demand is going to be... Eesh. There we go. Total demand is going to be that multiplied by the number of cities. Is there a way to select a cell and say that I'm absolutely selecting it, or do I always have to add those dollars? Autofill? Don't tell me what to do. I know how to fill things out. That would make the total demand for grain for that, but that's only total raw demand. That's not total demand including industries. So this is where things get really murky. Instead, just see how much total satisfaction you can produce given the available resources, maximize the satisfaction, and later see the amount of population that corresponds to 50%. Sure, but satisfaction from gingerbread is the same amount of satisfaction as satisfaction from tools, but tools are much cheaper to create, since the demand is far lower for them. This hypothetical 250,000 city wants 5 bits of gingerbread, but only 1.25 bits of tools. And gingerbread's going to eat into a lot of other things that are needed for satisfaction, whereas tools only need, what, wood and steel? And steel is iron and coal. Much cheaper than gingerbread. Doing this without fully understanding how the supply chains work in games seems optimistic. I think we understand how the supply chains work. We at least 80% understand them, which is good enough. And if we come to the end and there's some problems, we can just hammer out those problems, right? Good plan is fine. A perfect plan is what we'll arrive at the very end. Why 250k? That's just an example. The thing is, I don't know what the target population can be. The target population should be the highest that can be 50% fulfilled with demand for goods. Ideally, as soon as the population reaches 250,001 people, they suddenly want more than they're going to be provided with. What about calculating the maximum production and then use that to calculate the pop? Because the production also changes. We produce this amount of grain. These are absolute production numbers. This is absolutely the amount of grain that we'll produce, pigs will produce, vegetables will produce, wood will produce. And these won't change. However, some of that grain can be siphoned off to make pastries. And the amount that we siphon off to pastries changes the amount of pastries we have. Really, every excess bit of grain that goes above just base satisfaction for grain should be put off into pastries. That's a pretty winning calculation right there. But then, what about your extra wood? You're going to produce more wood than people want raw, but that wood could be used to make... Hold on, let's look at our supply chains here. That wood could be turned into paper, which could then be turned into newspaper. There's demand for both. It could also be used to make furniture. It should definitely be used to make tools. Could be used to make clocks. I understand that I'm just presenting the problems here and not the solutions. That's because my limited powers here are not producing the solutions. So I said satisfaction rather than goods produced. Fix your population at a constant, like 1,000. See how much percentage satisfaction you can squeeze out with the raw resources. And then once you have maximized satisfaction, see how much population you can get your target of 50%. Each city needs 27 goods, so you need to deliver 14 of them. Correct. First, check what is the maximum amount of consumption units that can be satisfied by your RGOs. See how many cities can the RGO support, e.g. for grain, max cities is grain production divided by need factor, multiplied by 1 minus pastry production. That is brilliant code. Do it for every other RGO and processed good. Then you will see how many satisfaction units can be supplied and divide it by 14 and 58. Then optimize each processed good to max them out. If only you were a Eurista, then you'd have all the information you need. Okay, I understand completely. And what I understand is that I'm gonna take a step back from doing this on stream just now and figure this out off stream during my off days. People have given a lot of tools with which to use for this, so I'm gonna try to mash something out. Although some people are also working on something, so if you want to share that my way, that might save my bacon as well. In short, when we come back next week on Wednesday, come hell or high water, we're going to have a plan, and then we're going to be putting that plan into action. Finish off the express lines along this. Not in the picture here, heavens no, in the actual game. Finish off the express lines and begin the construction of the dedicated freightway. The money that I make passively should be able to support the construction of the freightway, and as I construct the freightway, it's going to bring the goods to their designated locations, which will give me more money to construct more of the designated freightway. That's probably going to take all of next week. It might even take more than that, but it is what we will be doing next week. So, sorry to end your fun with spreadsheets for today, but we're going to get back to the gameplay next week. So, good lord, my head is toast between all the Japanese and the railways today. No streams tomorrow. I'm going to work on the survey statistics, and on Sunday we'll have the weekly one shot, followed by a digest of the questionnaire / survey I put out. And if you haven't actually heard of that yet, I've got a channel survey going out, and if you ever watch this channel, I would implore you to answer my unnecessarily long survey, and you'll be part of what I pick through on Sunday. The link is not in the chat. The link isn't anywhere. Maybe somebody can pick it out. Hell, maybe I can pick it out. Can I send the intermediate... Oh, send what you want on Discord. Ping me. Ping everyone. Well, no, don't ping everyone. Not even sure you can. Where's our... Dang, I had something for it. These are the kind of links I should keep handy. I have a community tab? Huh. Give survey link. I'm trying to find it. I must have put it somewhere. I think the link will be in that video, Max. Oh, good lord, Max. Alright, here we go. I've got a link, an actual link. There you go. That should work. And if it doesn't, shame on me. Right. This is more well, between this and the Japanese, this is more thinking that I've done for a very long time. So, much as I'm enjoying these long plays, looking forward to something a bit more brain dead for long plays afterwards. So I'll say the announcements. Alright, cheers. Okay, I'm tired. I'm tired of thinking and tired of talking for today, so I'll be back on Sunday. Until then, though, it's a cheers from me and a cheerio.